Good morning. We're Ayin Beis, reviewing the conclusion of it on page 1384. 83, sorry. No, 1384. 1384, sorry. Okay. Divrei Sofrim. Explaining what means Sofrim in the context of Teir Shabbat Peh. So just for the record, I've stated it, but I'll just say it again. When you say Divrei Sofrim, it's equivalent of saying Teir Shabbat Peh. Because it's not coming from Teir Shabbat, that's the Sefer. Sofrim are the teachers, or in this case, the scribes, the authors, the ones who wrote it down, or the ones who are probing, as he said, and analyzing every letter and every word. So when you say like a mitzvah medivrei sofrim, or a mitzvah de rabbanon, or a mitzvah Teir Shabbat Peh, generally it's the same thing. I mean, there are distinctions, but in our context, we're talking about Teir Shabbat Peh. So right now we are learning what is Teir Shabbat Peh, and what we so far have reviewed, and I'll just sum up what we learned yesterday, is that Teir Shabbat Peh is coming to explain Teir Shabbat. It's not, God forbid, a separate Teira. It's all Teira Achas. And actually, Teira B'Pirusha Nitna, the Rambam says, the Teira was given with its explanation. So Moshe Rabbeinu already received Teira Shabbat Peh. Many people mistakenly think Teira Shabbat Peh only came later. Right from the outset, Hashem taught Moshe Teira Shabbat and Teira Shabbat Peh, as we learned. Then in many cases, he actually explained to him 49 ways to explain a verse in a way of Memtes Pamim Tahir, Memtes Pamim Tomeh. And Moshe passed that on. Rabbeinu HaKadosh, in his generation, compiled that all into Mishnah. And the Talmud continues that discovery and deliberation, what he's calling here Bina, analyzing the Nekuda of Chochma in Teir Shabbat and the Nekuda of Chochma as it radiates in Teir Shabbat Peh and Chochma Tata, where there's a clarity. But in the time of Talmud, the clarity began to be concealed, and as such, they needed further discussion and further debate and argument through questions and answers and arguments and counter-arguments and darkness, as he called it. Yes, darkness, concealment. They come to understand a deeper dimension. That's the key to knowing here, that you reach even a deeper place in the source and core source and root of Chochma. So though Chochma law is rooted in Chochma Stima and in Keser, but revealed it's not. It's revealed only as a Nekuda. So those that understand the Nekuda, they understand it. But what about those that don't? That's where you need the Bina of the next generation, what he called here the Sofrim, the Sefer, who like an author is able to dig deeper into the meaning of the letters. Like he gave the example, Eila Hadvarim. So Eila Hadvarim, they learn from Eila Hadvarim the fact that it says Eila is 36, Hadvarim is Ha, hey, Dvarim is plural too, 3 more, that's 39 malachas. And so on in many different, throughout the whole Gemara, you find this approach. And that in turn brings a whole other dimension because it's accessing the Sheira Shemakra of Chochma. And what we learned, the last piece we learned yesterday was that indeed, actually the root and source of Chochma, he brought from the beer of Reya Nechel Kutatera and the pasuk Chochma Techaya Ba'aleha. Why is Bina called Ba'aleha? Ba'aleha means its possessors, the owners, so to speak, of Chochma. Seemingly, Bina is only a makabel. It's makabel from Chochma. So he said, no, Bina, because the Nekuda Sichlis of Chochma law, in Chochma Gluya, it's only a Nekuda. In its root source, he says these words, it's betachlis harchava blit simtsum. Ba'atzmus kechasechel betachlis harchava blit simtsum klal. Now, he made it clear, that does not mean that it's revealed. It means, however, so there's no existing seichel there, because it's in the root source. Like when you say something is a koyach yuli, it's the source of it, the source of the power. But indeed, there it's not in a state of tzimtzum. And that's what gives the power for Bina. So Bina has more than just expanding on the Nekuda of Chochma. Bina has a power to reveal all that depth and all the expansiveness, like he said, that's included Behelam and Nekuda, Kol HaNelam Nekuda, because it's rooted in a place that's higher than the Gili of the Nekuda. There is that expansiveness. And nevertheless, on the other hand, we say Chochma Techaya Ba'alel. Chochma sustains, energizes, gives life to Bina, to Ba'alel, because at the end of the day, Bina is not doing this on its own. Chochma is Mechayes HaBina Sharei HaSoged HaBina B'Nekuda is the Chochma. It's Chochma that's feeding Bina. What Bina is doing is giving in return is that whole expansiveness, and therefore getting to the root and source of the idea. Therefore, we have a deeper understanding of it. But at the end of the day, it's Chochma that is being mashpia into Bina. We call here Shari Asogi He Ben Kudus Min Haisha Kol Nimtza Behelam Nekuda the Chochma. Everything is included in the Nekuda of Chochma. Like we said earlier, when the Sefer, the author writes a Sefer, everything is included in the letters. Even if we can't see it, it's there. So everything comes Behelam Nekuda Zu Kol Ha'emek Harei Va'erech Rechev. And Bina is what reveals it. Okay, that's where we stopped. So all this is coming to explain, as I said, the power of Torah Sheba'al Peh, which in the context of the bigger picture of Ayin Beis is essentially how we integrate the divine wisdom and the divine will in Torah, even in a state where we may not have initially the clarity. Basically, how to bring it into a world like ours, into Tachtenim, how to make a dira b'Tachtenim with Torah. So Rabbeinu HaKadosh and the generations before that, they had a tremendous gili. But what do you do after that? So he's saying, not only is all not lost, you actually have the opportunity to reach even deeper and reveal even deeper things that were not revealed before. Because in dealing with the challenge of this concealment, we need to dig deeper. And here we're accessing the Sheirah Shemakar of Chochma Ilah, as we're discussing here. And that's why Sefer is higher than Sefer. Sefer with a Vav. Now he's going to continue in this discussion of Bina and Chochma and how they interact with each other. So on top of page 1384, line number 5 rather. Rak Mashanel B'chinas HaChochma. From the words V'gam HaKoyach. So let's continue learning. So he says like this. So Bina is Megala Rak Mashanelam B'chinas HaChochma. So Bina is not coming to bring in anything new. It's really revealing everything that is concealed within Chochma. However, concealed, which means from the perspective of someone who would not see it, they didn't see it before Bina revealed it. So we have to keep that in mind. V'gam and from this root and source of Chochmah Law, where Bina gets its power to expand, also has the koyach laharchiv and Nekuda, to expand the Nekuda, ulagalis es hanelam bo ze gamkein. I'm sorry. Let me correct my. No, I didn't interpret it right. Strike that. Let's start again. He said, so everything that Bina reveals is hidden in Chochma, just like when you're looking at Sefer Torah, everything is there in the letters. The Lamates Malachis is alluded to in the words Eila Hadvarim. It's just not revealed. And furthermore, in Chochma there's even more than that. Even this very power that Bina has to expand the Nekuda, and to reveal that which is concealed within the Nekuda, in the spark, in the kernel. So in other words, when we're saying that Bina accesses the root and source of Chochma to expand, it's not bypassing Chochma. Besides the fact that everything that Bina reveals is concealed within the Nekuda of Chochma, even the very power of its expansion also is transmitted to Bina through Chochma. Now that's a big chiddush, because you could say, one second, Chochma is only a Nekuda. But he's saying, no, in Chochma itself also is kol by this power to expand. Who inyan havein b'Chochma. So this is an expression from Sefer Yetzirah, where it says havein b'Chochma, v'Chochem b'Bina. That Chochma and Bina is adding another point here. That in addition to their relationship, where Chochma is the Nekuda, the point, the spark, or the kernel, the seed, and Bina expands it, there's also a Bina within Chochma. Havein b'Chochma means in Chochma there's a level of Havein, of Bina. And in Bina there's a level of Chochma, which he's not discussing here, at least not right now. So what is this adding? That there's another point in their connection. That even this power of Bina expanding does not begin with Bina. It already begins in Chochma, except as obviously it's not revealed yet. Because Havein b'Chochma, as he's going to explain, the Hari Koyach HaSeichel, because the power of intelligence, the cognitive power, Kishem shebekeiche lahamtzi sichlim, meaning Chochma, just as the power, Seichel has the power to conceive of ideas, lahamtzi sichlim, conceiving ideas. That's Nekudas. Aden shir, without any limit, there's no limit. How much Koyach HaMaskal, how much Koyach HaSeichel can conceive, there's no limit. Kach, in addition to that, there's another koyach it has. The seichel has also yesh b'koyach laharchiva maden shir. It also has the power to expand them without limit. So as soon as Chochma emerges, it's actually in its source is that way already. But even Chochma, as it emerges in the conscious state, just as the power to conceive of ideas, it also has the power to expand on them without any limits. And that's why the Nekuda, even though it's not yet actualized, it's only like everything is concentrated in one cell and one kernel. That's why this Nekuda contains within it Gam Koyach Zeh Laharchiv HaSeichel. It also has the power to expand the Seichel. The power will be actualized actually in Bina. And this is what's called V'zeu B'chinas Havein b'Chochma. That's the level of Havein to understand Bina within Chochma. So what do we know now? A few things. He's explaining why Chochma Techaya Ba'aleha. So we understand Ba'aleha is Bina. Why is it Bina? Because Bina does that. It expands and brings out the whole Nekuda. So in a sense, Bina is being mashpia in a way, and Bina is actually contributing. On the other hand, Bina is who's mechaya Bina? Chochma. Not just the seichel of it, meaning that the Nekuda encompasses everything that Bina will expand upon, but also the very power to expand also comes through Chochma. That's what he added. And that's why v'zeu sha'chochma mechayas habina. And that's why we say Chochma sustains, energizes, gives life to Bina. Because everything Bina has comes from the Nekuda of Chochma. Obviously, except the actual expansion. But the power to expand and the very details are all coming from the Nekuda of Chochma. So this is critical, because if you didn't say this, then there's be some type of disconnect in the interface between Chochma and Bina, or between Torah Shebiksav and Torah Shebal Peh. Because you'd say Torah Shebal Peh adds something more than Torah Shebiksav. So it does. But now he's making the integration much deeper, because everything Torah Shebal Peh has, or in the words that he's saying, Bina, comes from Chochma. Not just that everything is included in the Nekuda, whether it's even if it's hidden, but also the very power to expand the Nekuda. And here's the qualification. However, so what do you need Bina for? What do you need Torah Shebal Peh? Because in the Nekuda of Chochma, Kol Zehu Behelem, all this is concealed. Both the details and the very power to expand. And the Gili that's in the level of Chochma is only a state of a Nekuda, but Tachlis HaKitzur. If you look at the Sefer Torah, if you look at the Sefer, you only see words, just B'kitzur. B'atzimtzum, B'tachlis HaKitzur, B'atzimtzum. The Ima Yeshu B'chinas Gili Eir B'chinas Eir Mevurer V'Naki. And even though it is a level of revelation, and more than that, it's a clear and crystallized revelation. As we learned, Chochma is Chochma Brura. Everything is very clear there on that level. But it's still a mitzumtzum. It's only a nekuda, and only someone on that level can understand it. Someone outside of Chochma doesn't understand it. The Eina need of a nigla klal mashanel bay, and what is concealed in it itself, this clarity. But what is concealed? What is it is? But the Eina need of a nigla mashanel bay, that which is concealed within it, is not obvious and not revealed at all. And that's where Bina comes into play. Ubebchinas Bina, ubebchinas Gilui. And Bina is a level of Gilui, where all this comes out in a revealed way. Shekol inyan habinu legalis esanelam banakudim. Because the whole inyan, the whole purpose, the whole role and function of Bina is to reveal that which is concealed in the spark, in the point, in the kernel, in the seed. And yet, going back the other way, and this koyach that Bina has, which is the koyach of Havem b'Chochma, like he said, it all starts with a Bina within Chochma. That's the very muhus of Bina. Its expression is when it actualizes it. But the muhus of Bina, meaning what sustains it, what gives it life, techaya. So he's really teaching the pasuk, Chochma techaya ba'aleha. That techaya is not just that it energizes it. It's like it's it's the soul of Bina is Chochma. Muhus Bina. Who mepnei she'shorsha mekeda hu b'chinas ha'israchvus shebemoker ha'seichel kedem sheba b'chinas nekuda. And that is due to the fact, like we said earlier, because the root and source of Bina's power to expand comes from where? It doesn't come from itself. It comes from the root of Chochma. Moker ha'seichel, before it became a nekuda. So you have really like three pieces here. There's the root and source before it becomes conscious Chochma, then becomes conscious Chochma, but there it's only a Nekuda. Within it lies the whole power of its source and all the details. And Bina is drawing the power through Chochma Gluya, from the source of Chochma Gluya in the source of Seichel, to both expand and reveal all the details within the Nekuda. So these are like three stages of how Seichel is conceived from its root and source before it's even a spark of an idea to the point where we generate the idea and then we develop the idea in Bina. So if you think in terms of Teresh B'Ksav, Teresh B'Alpeh, he's probably going to say this, but I'll say it explicitly. Remember, Shlishi HaMedaber. Teresh B'Ksav did not begin from the written Torah. It began from Hashem. Hashem chose to take his very essence. You say, "No nafshi ksovis Yehovis," "No nafshi ksovis Yehovis," and to embed it within Torah. Say, "Oisi atam leichin." So Hashem took his very essence. That essence, like we called before, Ein Sof Hamaitzil, is Shlishi HaMedaber. That's the narrator of Torah. That in turn is like the Sheirish Shemoker of the Sefer. That in turn became a Sefer Torah, a Sefer with letters. But in the Sefer, it's all like Nekudas. You don't see all that depth, except someone that's on that level. And then comes Teresh B'Alpeh and draws from the Shlishi HaMedaber, from the source of the Sefer. The Sefer draws from the source of the Sefer and reveals it all and expands it. But that very power is not its own power. That itself is also coming through Chochma from the source, like we said here, from the Sheirish Shemoker HaSeichel. So that's the process here. So this really rounds it all out, that we're not talking about something that's added. It's true that Amoraim, as we learned earlier, through their Mesiras Nefesh and Yegiyah, were the ones that drew it out. And we have to still understand what he said, that they're chidushim, that they innovate, that are not there in the Mishnah. Mamish chidushim, through their koyach hasech, but they're not doing something new. Whatever they're drawing out originates from Hashem. At the end of the day, every detail of Torah Sheba'al Peh that the Amoraim and then later generations are ultimately drawing from the source itself, the Eibishter. The only thing is, it was not revealed in the Sefer of Torah Shebiksav. So it could be, as we're going to learn later, they are innovating things that may not be in any revealed way in the Sefer, but it's coming ultimately from the Makar of the Sefer, from the Makar of the Seichel of it all, which is the Shlishi HaMedaber, which is Hashem. So we'll learn more about that later, just to clarify that point. So that's what we're up to right now. Okay, let me stop here if anybody wants to ask anything. The Nimtza. So now he's like summing up. The Nimtza, what do we draw from all of this? What do we derive? What's the takeaway? Hagam shehi mekabeles. I skipped the line, sorry. He said, Al kain muhusa. That's why the muhus, what's the muhus of Bina? Havein b'chochma. That's why its personality, who b'chinas harchava v'izgalus dafke. Its muhus is harchava v'izgalus because it's drawing from the root of seichel, which is in a state of expansiveness. When you talk about the Eibishter, how does he see the Torah? For him, it's not in a Nekuda. Everything is absolutely clear. So it's a drawing from there. So it's in a state of, it says, and that's why, indeed, it reveals that which is concealed in the Nekudas of Chochma, because it's drawing essentially from the mouth of the well. Just to give an example with Yom Kippur, with Shuvah, we're coming to the month of Elul. When Moshe was elicited from Hashem, the Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim, the 13 attributes of compassion, after the Jews built the Egel, Hazav, after the Chet Egel, the sin of the golden calf, and in Yom Kippur it says, Salachti Kidvarecha, that God forgave them. So it's true. That was not there before, because when the Jews received the Torah at Shavuos, by Matan Torah, they didn't need that type of power. So the Torah was there, but then once they transgressed, Moshe needed to dig deeper. And when he elicited Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim, these 13 attributes of divine compassion, and the second luchas are not Moshe's luchas. They also come from Hashem. But Moshe was the one, through his tefillah and beseeching God. So ultimately what he did was he reached deeper into the source of Torah, which is Hashem himself, to draw out these powers. The same thing when we, let's say, are challenged. Just use a physical example. When some resistance or something challenges you, and you have to dig deeper to find deeper resources, you're not finding resources in some third place, it's within you. Except till now, it's been completely concealed and not actualized. So when a person, let's say, exercises, conditions themselves, and now you're able to do something, you have extra strength that you were not able to do before you exercised. Where did that strength come from? It wasn't a gift from someone else. It was within you and your potential. You just didn't actualize it. So you needed that effort. So bottom line, what Bina is revealing and expanding is all there before, in the source. The Bina's power is accessing that and actualizing it. So v'nimtza. So what do we derive from all of this? Hagam shehi mekabelas mebchinas nekudas hachochma. That even though Bina receives from the spark, from the Nekuda, from the point of Chochma, the EF Shaliyas Hasoga de Bina, below Nekudas HaChochma. As we stated, you can't have the comprehension of Bina without a Nekuda. What are you comprehending? You have to have something to comprehend. You have to have the seed to develop. Umahi Megala, Mashanimtze Behelim Ba Nekuda, and that which it reveals. In other words, so even though Bina is receiving from the Nekuda of Chochma, and also what it reveals, it's what's concealed in the Nekuda, so it's also not from Bina. The gam koyach harchova, and the third point he made, and also the very expansiveness that Bina has. Yesh ben Nekuda zu is also there in the Nekuda. So all things, Bina receives from the Nekuda of Chochma. Everything it reveals in detail is concealed in Chochma, and also the very expansiveness comes from Chochma. B'kol mokim, harizeh b'Bina b'chinas koyach atzma. This is the key here. Had you stopped by Chochma, even though Chochma has all this in potential, but it's not actualized. So you need something to actualize it. When I just said, for example, you exercise and condition, even though the power that you're accessing is there before, but you need that effort. If Moshe did not go on the mountain to pray for the Jews and gain tshuva, so yes, the potential is there, but you have to actualize it. So all this shows you that there is some another power here. That's why Bina is not just a revelation of Chochma, it's a koyach atzma. It's bebina b'koyach atzma, shari b'chochma kol zeh b'helem ha'oid. Because in Chochma, all these powers are there, but in a very concealed state. And what is revealed there is only a very diminished light. It's only a nekuda. Yes, it has everything in it, and if you're on that level, you could see it. But that's its state. Ubina and Bina, because what is embedded within it is the power of the root and source of seichel. Al kain bo dafke. That's why dafke and Bina bo dafke koyach harchova ve'izgalus kol hanelam. That's where the power of expansion and the revelation of all that's concealed is expressed. So now he's going the other way around. That even though Chochma is the root of it all, and Chochma channels it all, everything we just learned, but bottom line, let's not minimize the role of Bina. Bina has a tremendous role. It's a koyach atzma that manifests all this power. So again, if you didn't have Bina, what would you have? You'd have the potential for all of this, but not the actualization of it. Telling us to look at the Maimer Tereir from the Alter Rebbe, and the Lech Lecha Maimer, Ubagos L'Sham, and the gloss to there, that's most likely from the Tzemach Tzedek, that the expansiveness within Bina comes from not the Yud, but the Keitze Shel Yud, the point on top of the Yud. Which is, in other words, what he said here, the Sheirish Shemokar of Seichel, of Chochma. So Chochma is the Yud, and Bina is getting it from the Keitze Shel Yud, but the Keitze Shel Yud travels through the Yud into Bina. Generally speaking, he doesn't say this here, but Bina would be the Hey. If Yud is the Chochma, the Keitze Shel Yud is what he's calling here the expansiveness, the root of it. Then Bina itself is the Hey, because the Hey is an expansive state. As with, Yud is only a point. Okay. V'zehu, and this is the pasuk that we mentioned earlier on page 1377, you may remember, the Nevonim, afili b'mei meisha lo yishtakach. That it wasn't so common, Nevonim, Bina. Even though Chochma is higher than Bina, but Nevonim, a maven, so if you look on page 1377 on top, the end of the paragraph, he spoke about the Ekach and Pasha Dvarim, it says. The Mishnah says that he appointed and he Ekach Chachamim v'Yeduim ve'elu Nevenim.
Ve'elu Nevenim loy ka'omo.
Right. Does not say Nevenim. Why? Because b'mei Mesha lo yishtakach. It wasn't common. They didn't exist. Why? The Maven Dover Meter Dover who b'koyach habina dafke. Because Chochma is a state that exists, but Bina needs to be nischadish. It needs to be introduced. Like he says there. So Bina has something that Chochma doesn't have. What does it have? The expression of what we're describing right now. The expansion and the details. And that's why we see the Barchova, the Bina, that the expansion of Bina, Yochel Lischadish in Yonim, that when you do expand it into Bina, into details, you could conceive, innovate. It's chadish. So things that were not there in the Nekuda Chochma. Now I know you'll jump right away and say, 1 second, didn't we say everything in Bina is concealed in Chochma? So what do you mean it wasn't there? So let's read on and see how he explains it. V'hainu, this means, you could say, of course, the chiddush is that it's revealed, and those that looked at Chochma don't see it. But let's see how he explains it. V'hainu, mashen iskadish m'sherish shemokar ha'seichel. That which is innovated and drawn from the root and source of seichel higher than Chochma Gluya. We're talking now, we're talking about the koyach ha'seichel, koyach ha'maskil, or Chochma stemar, keser, shebo b'bchinas ischachus be'erech v'rechev, the Bina dafka. I'm not reading the right nigun. V'hainu, what is nischadish? This is referring to that which is being drawn from the root and source of seichel that comes in the state of ischachus, in the expansiveness. Erech v'rechev is the length and the width of the idea as it comes dafka in Bina. So Chochma, the Nekuda of Chochma, doesn't have that. So even though it may be concealed potentially, but it doesn't have it. The question is it a chiddush for Chochma too, or is it a chiddush only for us? So let's see before we conclude on this. I mean, I know what he says because we learned it, but let's read it inside. Because you could say a person who's on the level of Chochma, let's say Bali HaMishnah, did they know all the details that the Amoraim revealed or were even innovated in their process? And it's just that the next generation doesn't know it, so they have to draw it out. Or if a Tana was listening to Amoira learning Gemara, he'd actually learn something new. You could say both ways. The truth is, the answer is the latter, that he would learn something new. Because even though it's there, it doesn't mean every Tana sees it there. We learned the Gemara says about Moshe Rabbeinu, he heard Rabbi Akiva teaching, and he heard things he didn't know. If Moshe Rabbeinu was the highest level. If Chochma, and Moshe had Chochma and Bina, because he also had Torah Sheba'al Peh, didn't know, that means that yes, it may be hidden somewhere, concealed in Chochma, but doesn't mean it's revealed to anyone. And in Bina Taka is Nischadish. So that's why you say, Kol Masha Talmid Vosik Osel Lechadish, Nitn LeMoshe Mesinai. On one hand, you say it's a chiddush of the student. But on the other hand, you said it was given to Moshe. What was given to Moshe? The klal. The klal. It was there encompassed in like a bigger picture. But the expression of it and the actualization of it, that is the chiddush. We learned this earlier as well. When he spoke on top of page, where was that? I believe it was, on the bottom of page 1373, he asked this question. He said, we're not b'kabbalah ish mipi ish. They were machadish things they did not receive from their teachers. He asked that. So it's very clear that it's a chiddush even compared to the way it's in the Nekuda of Chochma. Even though it's really coming from the power of the Sheirish Shemakra of Chochma. So it's not completely their own. It's not like the Amoraim just came out of nowhere and they were Megala things. They were accessing Torah. Remember, the struggle of an Amoira when he's learning the Mishnah, or learning, for that matter, Mikra, the Pasuk, is all in Torah. It's a Mesiras Nefesh to understand the Pasuk. When it says Eila Hadvarim, like for example, they're learning a Pasuk in Pashas, Vayakhel, Eila Hadvarim, it says, and they're deriving Eila from the based on the rules of Gematria and the different rules of the 13 Midrash Atei and Dreshus, they're able to draw out that this is referring to the Lamates Malachas. But it's all within the Pasuk. However, before they said it, it was not revealed in the Pasuk. Now that maybe Moshe Rabbeinu knew. Most likely he did. But there are things that they draw out that Lavdafka Moshe even knew. I'm just driving the point home. He's going to say it ultimately soon, I just wanted to make it clear so it shouldn't be any confusion here. B'zeh inyan, and this is the inyan when we say nada mikifei mivrach. So it's a lashon Gemara in Shabbos in Nedarim. I looked it up then when we learned it first time. It's referring, nada is referring to a nahar, a river. River is
What
Bina.
is base Aleph Vav Reish? What is this? Or Shetevis?
The Erech v'Rechev.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it says nada, this is an Aramaic. A river, Mekife means from its banks. Mivrach is blessed. Basically, a river expands due to the fact that it has its own parameters. Upirish. What means Mekife? So the Gemara, the Rashi explains Pirish and commentary Sela, from its stone, from its from the river. Where's the river receive the water from? River does not create water. It's not a spring. It's not a live wellspring. The river has a place what's called Saleh. Hainu b'sharshe mekede. So when you say, where's a river, why does a river expand? When you take a river and you look to the root of the river, you're going to find the river begins somewhere. It often begins in a spring, a wellspring that maybe is rooted under the ground. But in the well, it's only tippin. It's only drops. So the Gemara asks, is basically discussing where does the river get its expansiveness from? So it says because it goes back to Shershe Mekedi, Misale. Something is giving the river that power. And he's explaining it here at Pichsidis, that this is Shemizbarach Yesem Emashem Mekabel Min HaMayon. The Mayon, the wellspring, the river receives its root of water, like Bina receiving from Chochma. But where does expansiveness come from? The Mayan is not expansive. A Mayan is a very small, contained state, very intense and connected to the source. A Mayan is Mayim Chayim, and a river is not. I mean, in most cases, a river is not Mayim Chayim. A river is water that's connected maybe to a Mayan. So how is it more expansive than what it received from the Mayan? From the Mayan, it's receiving a certain amount of water, and here it's become a tremendously wide, expansive river. So that's what he says, because it's going back to Sharsha Mekede, it's reaching it from the place where the Mayan begins. That's what the Gemara is saying. So this is essentially telling you that a river, in this case Bina, is expansive because it's accessing the root and source. Just a raya from the Gemara on this topic. Ayin Beis is boil ill, and delve into what we learned earlier. That they had dibur misesef his chachus baseicha mashaloy oye beaskolas tchila. So we learned earlier that when a person speaks an idea, it's possible, or very often it happens, that new ideas come into play that were not there in the original idea. You see this often. If someone has, let's say, notes and they're going to write, they're going to speak a certain idea. Then while they're speaking, as they're developing the idea, something arises, something emerges. So what you see here is, again, chidushim that come, even though it's originating from the machshava, the thought that preceded the dibur, and from the ideas that you had beforehand, but something is neschadish in the process of explaining it. And the same thing is whenever you break something down into details, when you break into details, often new points will emerge. And again, we see this. That, when they say God is in the details. When you talk in general terms, you may not see that. When you break it down, you uin sham. It's telling us to look there. The Ayin Beis is bar le'il. I have to find where that is. Not in the earlier pages here. I think it's a lot earlier. I don't remember it recently. Okay. V'nizbar sham. And it was explained there, the zeu mepchinas hadas, that which dibur has that power to do is because it's accessing das, shamamshich mepchinas meiche ilo stima datika. Because das is concentration. Das is iskashus. So when a person really concentrates and brings something down into detail, it's accessing das, which is drawing from where? From the Sheresh HaMakar. Moichi law stima, that's the Moichi law of Keser, the Atika, of Atik. So that is what is happening in this expansiveness when you are breaking it down into detail. So das is the level of the connection, the intensity of your concentration. But the Hamshacha, the Gili, is where is in Bina. That's the role of Bina.
I'm going to finish. Before he said...
That's what he explained earlier, that das is concentration. When you concentrate and you take a Nekuda of Chochma and through concentration, intense concentration, expand on it, so that will draw from Moichi Los Timah Da'atika, which is from the Sheresh HaMakar of Seichel.
But here he said that this is because of the Bina.
So he's saying, we learned earlier that das comes into play because das has the element of concentration that helps Bina expand on the idea. What gives Bina? I mentioned before, you need to exercise, you need to work hard to expand something. So he's adding from what we learned earlier, das is also has a function in this process but the B'shacha and Gili is in Bina, not in das. V'yeshlemer, and we can say that the be'emes hakol nimtze b'nekuda de Chochma. Going back to the original point, everything really is found in the Nekuda of Chochma. Rak shezeh mashenelem b'nekuda. However, that's what's concealed in the Nekuda. It's concealed. Shezeh rak shezeh mashenelem b'nekuda. Shezeh m'sheresh HaMakar HaChochma. But in the Nekuda, it's all concealed. That comes from the root and source of Chochma. Shamaylim hakol b'nekuda k'mo derech moshel ha'sefer anal. That conceals everything in just a point. Like the author, when he writes something down in one word or one expression, he has concealed a lot of depth in it. Shalamaylim megillah ha'nekuda b'sharsha. That's higher than the gili of the Nekuda itself in Chochma in its root. I'll explain, but let me read it inside. It says, and that which comes b'yischachus and Bina is what's even more concealed within. And that's a higher level in its root. And who draws, who Maybe is the carrier of this Chiddush. That's Bina, because it has within it the root and the source. Yeah, I remember explaining this the first time. Basically, he's saying something. I'll use the example I gave before. Ela Hadvarim, for example, in the pasuk. So you could say Moshe Rabbeinu, because he was on a high level, he saw and understood the lamet that means lametes malachas. So it's even though the Amoraim and the Gemara learns it from the pasuk, but you can say it was there already, behelim in the Chochma, and there were those that even saw it. But then there's another level of Chiddush. A Chiddush that goes even deeper into the source, that even in the Nekuda HaChochma it's behelim. And it's not revealed in any way. So he's basically saying there's like two levels. There's things that Bina reveals that exists in Chochma, and to some extent you could even say someone may be able to even access it there, or maybe not. And then there are things, he said, that goes Chanel and B'Yeser. It's digging even deeper, and it's much more concealed, and that's a higher level. And the reason Bina can access it, because Bina is connected to the Sheresh HaMakar of the Seichel in Chochmas Timah in Keser. So he's basically, the Yesh Lemer is addressing what I said earlier. Is Bina revealing something that's already in the Nekuda, except it's Behelam? Or is it a Chiddush even compared to the Helam of Chochma? And he's saying there's two levels, basically, which makes total sense. That's why you'll find in Shas, you'll find things that the things that they reveal that you could say that the Tanoim also knew. but the Tanoim knew it on their level, and the Amoraim did not. The Amoraim revealed it. Or you could say they actually mechadish it through their effort. They mechadish things that even the Tanoim and even Moshe Rabbeinu may not have seen in a Golodika way. So he's basically saying there's two levels. That's what he's saying in this parenthesis.
But it was called in
Anyway,
the
one second. Let me one second. So with this, we finished the paragraph. He explained at length here, both sides, how everything starts from Chochma, and that's where Chochma Techaya Ba'alel. At the same time, Bina adds a whole dimension, the Koyach of Bina, because it's accessing the Sheirish Shemaka. Even the expansiveness of Bina also comes through Chochma. But there's, at the end of the day, there are chidushim that Bina reveals from the root and source. It's not its own revelation. It's from the root and source of Chochma. That's always the case. Like I said before, Moshe Rabbeinu went up on the mountain and through his Avodas Atfilah and all that, was able to access. Yud Gimel Midas Harachmim was not there by Matan Torah. The Eibishter had Yud Gimel Midas Harachmim, but it's a new chiddush that Moshe elicited from Hashem through his hard work. So therefore, there are things that are there, Behelim and Chochma, there are things that are not, that Chochma, even though it passes through Chochma, but it's accessing the Sheirish Shemokeh even higher than that. That's essentially what he's saying here. Okay.
But he's also saying that even this is called Nekuda Chochma. The Bina could megala sein. But if everything is called Nekuda Chochma, but some things are so mechused that only the Bina could megala. That's the last thing that he said.
That's fine, but the bottom line is that someone on the level of Chochma will not see it till Bina reveals it.
I have a question.
1 second. And remember, not everything Bina reveals has to be a chiddush. He says chiddushim can happen in Bina, but when you explain a Nekuda, doesn't mean it's always a chiddush. Keep that in mind. It could have a chiddush, and he's explaining how the chiddush works, because it's digging deeper and reaching correct. Everything goes through the Helam of Chochma. But it's not, but the word is chachus, he said. That's what we're addressing here. So not everything Bina reveals has to be a chiddush. Bina can take an idea, develop it, and doesn't have to necessarily have a completely new chiddush. But it could have a chiddush, and so he's addressing both sides of it. Yeah.
So you mentioned,
but the ischachus is only what it is megale. But he said that everything.
Chiddush and Gilui usually are not the same thing. The words Chiddush, Gilui HaHelem, and Chiddush are not the same thing. Chiddush means Chiddush. Keep that in mind.
But he's saying Hakel Nimtza Nekuda the Chochma.
Yeah, but then read the second half. But Mashen Chiddush is Mashenelam beYoser. But Madrege Gavoy Yoser b'Sharshe.
Right.
So means
this is in the Chochma. Ne'elam in the Chochma. Maybe you need the Bina to megala zayin, but everything is called in the Chochma.
But then read the last line. Maybe es heis chachus ubchinas Bina, because it has in it koyach from Sharshe Mekede. Keep in mind that the way it's nelam in the Nekuda Chochma does not accessing the Sheirish Shemokeh. That's why Chochma itself cannot be mechadish it. You need Bina to be mechadish it, because Bina is going into the root and source deeper than Chochma is able to do. So yes, everything is in the seed. Everything a tree grows is in the seed. Okay. Go ahead. You wanted to ask something, George?
yes, I wanted to say, you said that when Moshe Rabbeinu went up the second time, he had to access a deeper level of Bina to be able to bring in the Yud Gimel Midor Arachamim.
I gave an example of things that were not revealed earlier that Moshe, through his effort, were accessed in order to gain tshuva and the second luchas. It was only an example. Just for
correct. So hypothetically speaking, if let's say the Chet Ha'egel didn't happen, Does that mean that we would have less gilui of the Torah today?
That's what Chazal say. They say without the Luchos Rishenis, we wouldn't have Maimorah Chazal, we wouldn't have Midrashim and Agodas. It's a Gemara in Eruvin, a Gemara in a few Gemaras talk about it, in the Nedarim.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
What does it mean what he's saying about Chochma? מה שנעלם בנקודו, שזהו משרש ומוקר החוכמה שלמיילו מגילוי הנקודו משורשו.
Chochma's Gilui, what Chochma looks like when you look at it, Chochma Gluya is a Nekuda, it's a Yud, right? That's its Gilui. It's rooted in a level that's higher than Gilui. But it itself is a Nekuda. That which is concealed in Chochma that is not revealed in Chochma, which Bina will reveal, is Nelam. That's why he says it's coming from a place, the Gilui Nekuda Misharsha. The Gilui Nekuda, Chochma is a Nekuda, Bekitzut. It's like a Posik in Chumash. It's Bekitzut. There's a Gilui there. It's not, there's no Gilui. As a matter of fact, it's called a Gilui Borur Ubahir. However, it's Bitsumtsum. It's a Yud. That which is concealed in it, that Bina will ultimately reveal, or even Machadish, is coming from the higher than the Gilui Nekuda, Misharsha. He said it earlier as well, that if you remember, he said that when the Amoraim, when they go back to Etzem HaChochma, that's higher than Koyach HaGilui. Because in the Chochma, you only have Gilui, and that Gilui is not enough to illuminate a place that there's no clarity. Remember, we learned earlier that why is Chochma not bringing clarity outside of Chochma? Because Chochma is only a Nekuda. And in order to access and bring the clarity into lower levels where there's no clarity, you need to reach the Sheiresh HaChochma, which is higher than, called it higher than Gilui, HaNekuda. So it's coming from a place that's higher than Gilui. That's why it can penetrate and pierce even a state of Helam. That he explained that on page in detail. He explained that. Where was that? Page 1376. He said it very explicitly. He said, I'm looking at the Lashon there. Or was it later? We spoke about the birthing. We're still going to go, well, there's one more paragraph that's going to elaborate on this more in detail, which is like the birthing. Oh, I'm sorry, the bottom of page 1380. Yeah, bottom of 1380. Okay, oh, I didn't realize what time it is. Okay, so we end this paragraph on
So
page
this
13.
is the Gilui from Chochma. It seems what he said, the emes hakol nimtzo b'hanekuda the Chochma. Even what the Bina is megala, it is called in Chochma. But the Bina is having the koyach in Shoshoi to megala zayin, because it's so nelam in the Chochma.
Correct. That's exactly right. Yeah. Like for example, the author, he writes it in words, but in the words it's very much in a Nekuda b'tzimtzum. Yeah. It's everything very brief, like in a Sefer Torah. But then you need to expand it. You need to be megala. Where does that power come from? Exactly right. And the author, when he goes and explains what he wrote, like, so he's accessing Shlishi HaMedaber, the mucker of it all, where it all came from. That's why he can expand on something that in the Chochma Begili would only be a Nekuda. Exactly right. So Bina's power is in the world of Gilui, of Giluyim, of expanding and Bimigala, and even the Mechadish is also part of expanding on it in a way that, yeah, that was not included. Yeah.